Hey, it's Daniel from Plumpy Thimble. Thank you. We reached 1,000 subscribers and just really appreciate everyone that stayed tuned, shared, liked, watched my videos. Really appreciate it. As you can see, my board game shelf is gone. This is normally where it would be because we're in the process of moving. I have a few games here. We're going to be looking at Flapjack, Flip Out, and Dollars to Donuts in the near future, as well as Inkwell Games. They've got their 10 roll and write game book. 10 games is a lot, so I'm getting to them when I can, but we're going to get something out soon. So for reaching 1,000 subscribers, originally I was going to stream one of the 10 games you can play in your head by yourself, but ultimately, as funny as that sounded in concept, it was going to be pretty much an hour of me just sleeping, which didn't seem that interesting to me. So since we reached 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be playing 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. It's a solo RPG. If you're familiar with my video that I did on the Wretched, it'll be a similar thing. The game itself uses dice and sort of a memory bank. The idea is whoever's playing is journaling their life as a vampire over the course of centuries. You're giving writing prompts. As the game progresses, you have to let go of certain memories. Every time you write, you gain memories and experiences. But the longer you live, the longer you continue the game, you start to lose information. You forget who you are, you forget your motive for certain things. Things that may have been extremely important to your character at the start of the game may be worthless by the end of it. And so it's a bit darker than something that I normally play. So that was kind of a weird headspace to get into. And this is not like a heroic character that I play. It's something that I almost completely disagree with in terms of personal values. But it was an interesting writing exercise. So here it is. This is my audio diaries from 1,000-Year-Old Vampire.
That idiot scoundrel Robert Guards not only had the audacity to think that I would seek to become a member of the cursed legion of the non-living by turning me clumsily into the creature that I am now, but he has also cursed me with one of his admittedly many traits that I find egregiously loathsome. When dealing with him on the day-to-day, his breath reeks of foul, sickly, sweet, metallic scent, undoubtedly a remnant of the death we both now have experienced. I find that every day the breath in my own throat sweetens to become as putrid and sickly as my, and I shudder to write these words, dark creator. As we travel west towards Oregon, I find myself constantly on the hunt for wild peppermint to combat this new affliction. All the while, Robert thinks it quite amusing. I retch at the thought that the two of us share meals on the recently deceased. But as no other sustenance seems to satiate my hunger, I am at a loss. Blast my cursed hunger! I have thus far managed to only feed upon the recently deceased or nearly dead in order to avoid suspicion and the ebbing pangs of my conscience. However, as we draw closer to our final destination, my hunger grew beyond my control, and I chose a woman that has been the thorn in the side of all those she meets. Helga Schumer was to die last night, falling victim, unbeknownst to all, to my insatiable appetite. She was never to be found. So imagine my horror when she walked back into camp tonight, acting as though nothing had occurred. That is until she winked at me from a distance and revealed 2 small puncture wounds on her throat beneath her scarf. She approached me, threatening to either oust both of our secrets or to kill the entire caravan outright. I was able to convince her, however, to do neither. Lies are coming easier to me. I don't relish that truth, but it is just that. I handed Helga the deed to my property in Oregon, promising it to be a lair in waiting, with all the amenities that someone of our proclivity could hope for. This will at least buy time for the others headed to Oregon. Oregon is not what I was searching for. To be truthful, it might have been, when the thought to travel here was planted in my mind, but since my new nature has flourished, I see nothing appealing. I do not enjoy being out in the day, I do not enjoy the local cuisine, and I do not at all enjoy the frequent visits from Helga and Robert, who seem to be totally incapable of seeing my displeasure at their frequent visits. The pain of knowing that I must live in a small apartment because they now own the land on which I paid for sickens me. But I persist, and I persist because of Jane. Jane Wesley, The woman that wouldn't give me the time of day when I was a man and still won't now that I'm a vampire. She does not realize the importance of her role as the sole thread between my former humanity and the constant hunger for blood. Every day she grows older. I would not condemn her to an eternity of wretched evil that I am now cursed with, but I fear the part of me that would not let her die. For now, I will continue to send her letters anonymously, as I have for the past year. I wish she would show a little more enthusiasm when she reads them. Instead, she seems perturbed. Well, something's afoot. The grocer, Jane, and most of the minuscule social interactions I have turn sour at first glance. I hear whispers as I walk by. Wolf, rabid, poker face, which I particularly don't understand or appreciate. My landlord, Harold, in particular, has gone from being aggressively pushy with the dues to very lenient. He peers at me with suspicious eyes and massages his gums, weirdly caressing his canines in my presence. It unnerves me. Even as a creature of the night, it just... yuck. I'm hungry and going to find something to eat. I was paid a visit by Jonathan Brinks yesterday. He is aged. The man that once allowed me to ride in his wagon when traveling from Illinois to Oregon was a young man. This, however, was a man old and sinewed. He was in town and heard that I was living in squalor, a venomous rumor. This home is comfortable and, aside from the smell, quite pleasant. As he entered my abode, his eyes widened. Something was wrong, but he didn't let me know what he was thinking. Not verbally, anyway. He didn't have to speak. My eyes dropped as I realized what must be happening and what must be done. A man that once gave me an opportunity for a new life now saw me for what I had become. We exchanged pleasantries, but it was a short, joyless meeting. He took his leave and headed for the door. It was dark, and I knew feeding on him would be the logical thing to do, but oddly enough, I wasn't hungry, and I didn't feel like risking suspicion anyway. I followed in the darkness, knowing that if he escaped now, he could bring a legion bent on my destruction back with him. I found a rock and aimed true, hitting him with surprising power. I then walked back to my room, where I write now. He will be found, but I will not. They're gone. I don't know what happened, but they're gone. Everything was a blur. I stalked through the night, as I've become accustomed to doing. I don't know why my hobbies changed when I did. While exploring the seemingly siren call of the coastal sea caves, I found myself in the darkness, thick and enticing and peaceful. It had been so long since I had rested, truly rested. Well, I rested and emerged to a new, louder world. A century has passed since my slumber, and with that century all that I know. And Jane, the one that I loved. I missed it. I missed my chance to save her. I lost everyone. Well, not everyone. Helga and Robert unfortunately found me. They too have slept comfortably in their literal castle on the coast. My apartment, shockingly so, has been let out to someone new. I find myself reluctantly living with the only other two immortals I know. Upon taking stock of the few belongings I have, in an effort to better myself and my situation because my two roommates are insufferable, I stumbled upon a map. It was tucked into my coat pocket in an envelope that reads, "From Jane." The name is familiar, but faint. No matter. It is inconsequential. The map led me deep within the forest. After much searching, I found a cave that held something quite intriguing. An orb. Magic or technologically advanced in nature, I'm not sure. But it seems to have been here for quite some time. I spent a few years in the cave studying the orb, and I believe it capable of undoing past events. It exudes an unnatural power, and while I have no use of it, someone must have. I would have remained in the cave had I not been interrupted by a party of fellow treasure hunters. Unfortunately for them, I was quite hungry. Their leader, a gentleman by the name of Quigley, was quite the scrappy little fellow, being the only one to escape. No matter, I had best be on my way. I head north tomorrow. The short winter days are more comfortable. Well, Seattle might have been a poor choice. The local residents association has deemed the tar on my windows, which are necessary for my comfort, to be against regulation. Apparently ignoring warnings sent by this association is an actionable offense, and while I slept in midday, the authorities made a poorly named wellness check. It appears that over time my distaste of sunlight has become a full-on allergy that threatens to kill me. I awoke in time to see sunlight pour through the room where I lay. In a panic, I viciously fought off everyone. I don't think anyone but Karen, the woman who started this whole squabble, survived my sleep-addled wrath. I am full, at least. As things looked dire, I huddled in the recess of my home waiting for darkness. A curious young man entered my home and started searching through my drawers, unaware of my presence. Before I could attack him, he saw me. Shocked, but not terrified as I would have expected, he told me I needed to get out of there. He introduced himself as Victor and agreed to help me escape in exchange for the valuables he had already found. I had little choice. He ushered me out, used his contacts, whatever those were, to find me a small place to stay where the paint was allowed on the windows, and few questions were asked. I pictured vampiric life as a little more glamorous, which of course it would have been had I not been so stupid when traveling to Oregon in the first place. Victor took me to his neighborhood, to live. It was a close-knit community, away from the rest of the population, isolated and untrusting of outsiders, except outsiders that were brought in by one of them, in this case Victor. That was a poor judge of character. I have to eat after all, and time went by in a flash. Months, years, maybe I gained the trust of this community and fed on them at the same time. Victor was the last to go, confused as to why I would repay such kindness with such brutality. He begged for an answer that I felt no obligation to give. I think I like it here. I might stay a while. This little hamlet tucked in the woods, which served as a community for Victor and his societal outcasts, is working out well. The only real issue is that, in my rage, I wiped out my entire easily accessible food source, which means I'll have to hunt again. At least I have a place to return to, secluded from the rest of the city. Still, this proves difficult, as it has been quite some time since I've had to show caution of any sort. I'll begin tomorrow by taking a bus into the heart of the city. There are always those society deems invisible that are easy enough to use as sustenance. Still, some adjustments may need to be made. The plan is simple and effective. When necessary, I take public transportation in the evening to get to the city. Once there, I simply walk. No one wants to see me, so they simply choose not to. Finding sustenance has become even easier. If no one wants to see me, then I find others that aren't seen. A homeless man, a panhandler, a mime. Then I gain their trust. I give them coin, I offer them food or companionship. I offer them all that they want and give far more than they bargain for. It's easy to survive off the scraps of humanity, even if those scraps are humanity itself. Time doesn't become apparent without certain benchmarks. Asher, for instance, is nearly 20 years old. When I began hunting in the city, I spared his mother because she was pregnant with him. I've known him since, offering support to his family, guiding him and befriending them. There is potential in having human allies, people that can help me in ways that I can't help myself. Asher could be of use in the future, and I intend to keep him and his family close to make sure that that happens. Pesky Quigley found my sanctuary. Foolish of him to continue searching for the orb. Curious that he would dedicate so much of his life to finding it, only to be ended in such a pointless fashion. I did not even feed off of him. I wanted him to know that not only was his search at an end, but that he had died as an old man that never accomplished the one task he'd set out to accomplish. Oof, it's pretty bleak on my part, but I guess that's just me now. Sorry, Quigley. I stumbled upon a Sears catalog, which is simply remarkable. They're now delivering goods to specified addresses. That means I can order some nonsense like a washer or a pair of shoes, and a blood-filled, delicious human will walk right up to my door. This is fantastic news, though it presents an issue as they tend to deliver during the daytime. If I can set some sort of trap, I may never need to hunt again. But I must be cautious. If too many delivery men sent to my stoop disappear, it may cause suspicion. Still, what an exciting time. I must get a phone the next time I hunt. Asher witnessed me, a friend of the family, hunting. He knows for sure what I am, and while that's not ideal for either of us, he trusts me far more than he should. Though he is concerned for me, he has told me that the authorities are looking into a series of strange murders that are almost certainly my doing. Thankfully, I have the delivery people to snack on, but that may not be a long-term situation. Stupid! How can I have acquired this much knowledge and have been so stupid? While searching for relics, a hobby I picked up, but has yielded no results and is quite embarrassing to admit, the sun came up. I was gallivanting in the rainforest and suddenly felt a tinge of heat on my arm and took cover in the trunk of an old tree. I must have been near a campsite or something because a small child found me. I begged him not to alert anyone, and he didn't. Strange that he would trust me. I believe the mortals these days tell their children specifically not to trust strange men they find in stumps. They trotted off, but returned with food. The little child tossed me a bar of chocolate. I ate it, which did nothing for me, but it was a kind gesture. Instead of actively not getting me killed, the child was trying to help me. It wasn't much more than that, and an uneventful day waned, and I was able to return home. Living in eternity makes time move so much faster in some instances, and so much slower in others. Fortunately, the waiting for me has ended. Using my influence over a family that invested far better than I did in generations past, I convinced them to leave everything to me in case of their untimely demise, which has happened. So I now find myself the sole owner of a large estate in the Cascade Mountains. It is the closest thing this province has to a castle. In celebration, I bought myself a throne to furnish the dining table. It's gaudy, but I think I deserve it. Something's brewing. The land shakes and the mortals are fighting over something that is inconsequential to me. Still, it draws ever closer to my abode, and I fear I must retreat to my former haven. I will return when the fighting stops, but what I will return to I do not know. These humans must stop killing themselves, or I will be forced to starve. I used to pride myself on throwing rocks. It was stupid. Now I just want to find relics. It is what keeps the adrenaline flowing. I don't know who I was. All I know is what I am. I am power. I am hunger, and I must feed. Asher is old now, and he has served me well, but should his quota slow, I'm afraid he may need to be put to better use in sustaining me. I am always hungry. Asher assisted in setting up an internet connection. While I do not yet see the benefit of this, I do see the danger. We vampires are not unknown throughout the world, and there are those that actively hunt us. I have allowed myself to remain stagnant with modern technology, which I fear, if I am not careful, could end up being my undoing. It is easier than ever to bring the outside world to me, which is a double-edged sword. The convenience of procuring the needs of my home from the internet are treacherous. In buying new lights for my home, I foolishly purchased ultraviolet lights. I was nearly killed. This is a brave new world, and one that may become interesting again. For the first time in a century, I am afraid. I slept, and that blessed rest that sees generations rise and fall came upon me. Asher is no more, my home is no more. I slept in the basement of my home, and that home no longer stands. When I awoke, I found myself covered in dust. A stale stench filled the air, and something was obviously wrong. It took me 2 days to dig my way out of the rubble, and when I managed to, the forest was gone. In its place was a desert. The sea loomed in the distance, and the mountains rose behind me. Something is wrong with the mortal world. But it's no concern of mine as long as I can eat. The world has changed faster than I could have ever expected. The technologies I are so feared are gone. And while in many ways the traditions and technologies of the past are predominant again, the vernacular and vocal patterns that I work constantly to maintain normalcy in the eyes of the world are gone. If I speak, I am considered an outsider. No longer am I able to blend in. I am obvious, noticeable. And neither I or anyone else in this new world appreciate that. Feeding will be difficult because with it, there must be a level of trust or anonymity. I have established myself in a small town on the coast. It seems to always be hot. While feeding remains difficult, it has become easier after I successfully became integrated into this small community, which is thankfully a travel hub with plenty of new blood traveling through on any given day. I am still constantly trying to catch up to a world that is both archaic in its technology and advanced in its age. I am seen as a novelty, which would normally be a bad thing, something that sticks out. But I have at least found my place. I am seen as eccentric, longing for a past that may never be again. But at least I am not seen as suspicious, which is all well and good, especially when I have to kill someone that trusts me. It's strange to think that even generations later I should find someone so remarkably similar, and in another close-knit community. He is the spitting image of Victor, the man that rescued me from the authorities in my small Seattle home. The very same man who I repaid by destroying all he loves, and finally he himself succumbed to my insatiable hunger. I thought it would be nice to have that kind of company again. I spent the better part of the month getting to know this man, Rick. I must be careful, because I frequently call him by the wrong name. Rick has welcomed me into his group of friends, and has welcomed me in a similar fashion into his community, and found me a small home to live in for the time being. Okay, now this I can work with. With the shifting times and fall and rebuilding of civilization, it appears that society has accepted the practice of cannibalism. While not a completely beneficial aspect of my day-to-day life, it certainly will make things easier going forward in terms of procuring potential sources of sustenance. I will need to study the circumstances and cultural norms surrounding this practice, as it's not just complete savagery, unfortunately. But this is certainly a highlight of this new world. Having been caught in the very act of feeding, I nearly attacked again in an effort to protect myself. But the onlookers simply asked if my meal was already dead when I began. I answered yes, and they raised one thumb and kept walking. The frustration of waking to a new era is oft-tempered with unexpected benefits. I anticipate this won't be the only strange, exciting revelation I will have. Humanity is striving for survival. Herds of people are constantly moving, migrating from one resource-deprived portion of the earth to another. This has made feeding all that much easier. I remain nestled in the small community where I have resided these past years. Thousands of travelers pass through every day. With so many people, it is near impossible for an individual to be missed. And even if they are, it is even harder to pinpoint where they might be. Death is always inevitable, even more so now that the world is turning to dust. While I do not fear death myself, I fear it for humanity as a whole. Should this land become uninhabitable and humanity should fall, my options for sustenance will suddenly become extremely limited. This will be my final journal entry. Humanity will survive. I've dedicated the better part of a century to establish that fact. I have influenced world leaders, policy, and done my part to personally exterminate the people that would threaten that. This was not a noble endeavor. It was born of a selfish need to feed. The world is healing, and with that healing I again grow bored, restless. Robert and Helga remain living. I hate them more than ever. The only two that I know of that share my immortality are the two people I truly wish I could feed upon. This boredom is a danger. The orb that I found so many centuries ago is no longer a mystery. Even that tantalizing unknown has been taken away. Should I choose, I can use it. And should I use it, the past will catch up to me in a very real way. The existence will all have been a dream. Should I choose to use the orb, I will be returned to whatever life I had before I became what I am now. It was so long ago, however, that I don't know when that was. I don't know what type of man I was or what life I led. It is the only fear that keeps my existence interesting. For the foreseeable future, I will survive. I have a personal chore to maintain the stability of the human race. They are stupid cattle that exist only to feed me. The earth is my farm, and when I grow bored of this farm, perhaps I will choose to become one of the cattle again.